Yeah, that's amazing. That a lot of these partnerships are evolving organically, and it's really coming from a place of where we have the same mission. So how can we, help each other out, uplift each other, and support each other as we're working towards, a similar vision and mission around whether it's empowering young creators to get the access to the resources they need to have that long-term stability opportunities available to them. So I think that's amazing. And what's incredible is that we've really seen networking evolve in the last couple of years. You mentioned LinkedIn being a great networking tool to reach out and connect with others. With the pandemic, we saw also like Clubhouse blow up and building organic connections there. So I think it's awesome that a lot of these conversations are starting from just connecting with others, talking and realizing like, hey, we're doing the same thing in different ways, which is something that you mentioned. But I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think partnerships are so important, and especially when there's that synergy that happens, it's explosive and it's incredible. So thank you, Kyiana, for sharing a little bit more about that. But I'm really excited to ask you a little bit more about the Intertwine product. I'd love to understand something that I found very interesting about Intertwine was you're leveraging AI to really help scale the business. And so I would love to hear that. I would love to hear how Intertwine is utilizing AI to help differentiate the product from perhaps other solutions that may be in the market.
Yeah. So like I said at the very beginning, I was called out for not actually doing the thing that I said I was going to do. Like I was going to help people get work. I was going to help people get fellowships and know more about the opportunities available in this industry. Excuse me. And I wasn't doing that. And so when I started doing it, when I started reaching out to schools, when I started finding students who were struggling, when I started talking to people about this problem, it became clear that I'm way beyond my capacity to do this by myself. Like I'm trying to reach out to 150,000 students every year and trying to figure out like, hey, what is your problem? What do you need help with? Like, how can I be of service to you? How can I mentor you or help you through the system for the next 5 years, if that's what it takes for you to be successful? What can I do for you that isn't just like grandiose in scale? Like I can put on film festivals, I can put on competitions and it reaches lots of people. I can put on programming that gets people to write and create more things, and that helps it at scale. But what happens when someone falls through the cracks and I want to be there for them to get a mentor? I want to help them individually. How can I make sure that those individuals don't get left behind? And again, like I said, 150,000 people every year graduate from school with an arts degree. I'm not going to be able to talk to every person. There's not enough time in the world. And I could hire a bunch of people to do that. And maybe in the future, we'll have a lot more counselors who can help do more individual counseling. But it became technical. Like we don't have to have that right now. We can actually build something that is able to do what I do, but at scale, right? So it was a hard lesson to learn after the first year or two. It's like, we'll do the thing first and then we'll know what to build. So after we've done it for a little while, we're like, okay, now Kyiana, when you give advice to these people, you know the questions that you're asking. Like, do you know what the job you want? And you're like, no. Okay, well then here's a course on this. Here's a newsletter on this. Here's an article on this. Okay, do you know where you want to be? Do you know this fellowship is available? Instead of asking those questions from me now, I can put those questions in our AI system and have it proposed to the student and the individual, and the results come out the same way as if I'm talking to you. So it was necessary to do the counseling, the non-scalable stuff first, because now I know the questions to ask. Now I know the responses I would give. Now I know the resources I need in order to help someone. And so with this AI system, it's able to recommend what I would normally have recommended as an individual, as a counselor to you. But it's smarter than I am because it has a bigger capacity than I do. And all I do now is hunt for the opportunities that are not available in the system. So, I can only have so much knowledge as a counselor, and a lot of counselors at different colleges have only the knowledge of their area. So if I'm in Oregon, I don't really know what's going on outside of Oregon. Maybe I know the big grandiose events that are happening in the programming entertainment world, and I was experiencing those dead ends too. Like I only know maybe 15 fellowships that are happening right now. That's more than the average bear, but that's not all of them. And so an AI system is able to store as much as possible. All we have to do is find it. All we have to do is start having a pipeline to keep it updated and keep having these fellowships come in. And then it can recommend it to you based on the questions that we propose and the answers that you give. Like I might give you the wrong fellowship because I'm not able to sift through all of these hundreds of programs and internships, but the system can, and it can give you a better recommendation than I could. And so that's what the tech system is. It's at scale, allowing us to store more opportunities, programs, jobs, internships, mentors. All of those things are able to be stored at a larger quantity, at a much more detailed recommendation than an individual can give at this moment. And I love it. It's one of the things that I'm proud of building. I'm proud of having my team build. It's not limited. And this is why I say, like, lawyers and journalists, I'm coming for you. Just give me a second. It's not limited to entertainment. It's only limited to the data that we supply it. Right. So if we had our niche be lawyers, all we need to do is find more fellowships for lawyers, go to the law firms and stuff like that. If we were focusing on journalism, then we'd have more programs at newspapers or magazines, The Cut, whatever. It's based on the data and the questions that you supply. And if you can supply those things, then it can recommend what you want. And so what we're building is a data scientist's dream. Like it will be able to take in large quantities of data and sort it how you want almost instantly. And so that is what's really revolutionary about it. Like I'm stifling it by only giving it the data that we need for it, but it has so many more abilities than what I'm selling it at the moment. But eventually you'll see it on the market being a multifaceted recommendation tool that blows the water out of a lot of things. So keep an eye out for it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we're super excited to see how, Intertwine evolves over time. It sounds like this AR feature is exactly what you needed to scale. To your point, there's only one of you, in terms of counseling, but now with this AI platform, you can really help the masses that, you're seeing in terms of just routing them to specific opportunities that maybe you would have not known about. But now that you have this AI tool, I think, you've cracked the code there.
It's just, now it's like the harder part, which is scraping data and like finding more information and building a pipeline of like, how can I always have programs? And there are lots of ways to do that. There's a lot of places that take in reports and take in programs, and you'll go to scholarship websites and they have scholarships all the time. So you create the pipeline, it'll be easy to start feeding those recommendations a lot faster and getting a lot more references out to people. But once we've done that, then we would be a huge success, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, super excited about that. And I guess in terms of our next question, I think when we talk to creators and other artists, a lot of themes we hear in terms of challenges is definitely financing projects. Has been like really difficult to have consistent funding for creative pursuits. So can you tell us a little bit more about like how you found success in financing your creative pursuits? I mean, specifically Intertwine.
Yeah. So as far as my creative pursuits personally, it's like I'm learning every day that you don't need a lot of money to put on a production, and that blows my mind. Someone rolls up on me, they're like, I made a movie for $500. I'm like, you made a movie for $500?
Wait, no way. Is that
I know,
thing?
right? Like the reason why we hold so many of the festivals that we do, like the 48-hour horror film festival that we have coming up, it's to show people you don't actually need all that much time. You don't actually need all that much money to make something that people will marvel at. People will buy, people will watch with interest. And I'll be honest, I was quite blown away by my own festival last year, because the film that it would blow your mind. This film that won, all the films are fabulous. Like, you could not fathom that these were made within 48 hours at, like, I don't even think it was $500 a budget. It was less than $500.
No
like, you
way.
wouldn't believe the films I saw. And I'm just like, you made this. Like, the winning film was shot in Mexico and Guanajuato. And the filmmaker didn't speak Spanish. So she was like directing a film. All the actors spoke Spanish. She didn't know what they were saying. And it was beautiful. The sound was great. The visuals were great. The sets were great. The outfits were great. The dialogue was great. And I'm just looking at her like, you've never made a film before? Are you serious? I don't believe you. You're lying. It looked like, I don't know if you've ever watched Pan's Labyrinth. It looked like Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth. I hope it's Guillermo del Toro. Is it? It mimicked it so well, and I'm like, you made this in 48 hours. And so that's like my first understanding of films don't have to take that long, and they don't have to cost that much. It's all up in your perception of what you think it should cost, and if you really wanted it made, you can do it. You can do it. It just might take more time, it might take more money, or it might just be you getting in your own way of making this project. And so sometimes you just have to be creative. But that's why we will continue to have 48-hour festivals like that. As far as Intertwine, can I have the question again?
How have you go ahead.
You can go ahead, Ray.
How have you found financing opportunities for Intertwine?
Financing opportunities for Intertwine. So just like a film, it's proven to me that you can do this with a lot less money. Now, I wish we had more money all the time. I wish we were revenue driven. I wish we were balling, man. I wish, I don't know how many people you've talked to who've started startups and they've successfully fundraised, and how that life is. I've not lived that life. I can't attest to that life. I've not successfully fundraised, and I don't see us successfully fundraising for a little while. And we're 3 years in, and I can tell you right now, none of us are getting paid. It's a marvel to me. I look at all my team, of course they all have other jobs and they come here and they love working here, and it's because of the culture that I've created around them, and they really believe in the mission that we're changing people's lives, and they can see it. And so they stick around because they see the end game. They either love building this technology that is absolute game changer, or they love changing people's lives. They love the glitz and glamour of entertainment. And it's really the reason why we keep going. It's not at all because we're funded by another entity. It's not at all because we're making tons of revenue. And it's something that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about. We always talk about what it's like for a company to succeed or fail. And I, honest to goodness, can't define what either of those things mean. What does it mean to fail? Maybe you were acquired and that's a failure. Maybe you just never made money and that's a failure. And people always describe how businesses fail after a few years because they don't make money. And I'm looking at them I don't make money and it's been 3 years. When am I going to fail? When is it supposed to be over? Because based on what everybody's saying, we're supposed to have failed a long time ago, and we haven't. And I keep looking at my team we're not gonna fail unless we stop, right? That's it. That's the only thing that's gonna stop us, because we can see that this is working, and it's just taking a little while longer. And so it's been a lot of reflection on, okay, maybe we're not the type of business that takes investment money. Maybe we're not the type of business that burns bright and gets acquired and then is gone. Maybe that's not what we are. Maybe what we're doing takes a lot more time. Maybe what we're doing is more inspirational. It's more built on helping people. So it's built different, or maybe it's built the original way businesses are built. It takes forever for a business to normally grow into a huge conglomerate. And it's one of the stories that keeps getting clouded out amongst all the startups in Silicon Valley. maybe that's not the mold that we're meant to fit. And it'd be nice to have lots of money. Don't get me wrong. We'd move faster. We'd have salaries. We'd be all focused. But when it's not that readily available to you, then you have to keep wondering, like, okay, so we're just going to do this the normal way? That's okay. So wait, we're all going to do this without getting paid? Really? Okay. So we're just going to be a revenue generating company. Okay, so let's do this. Like, we're all going to stay here and we're going to make this work. And I think there's a lot of companies who have staff like that, a lot of companies who are driven like this. I would hope so, because it's a different feeling. We don't come in here and we're not panicked that we're at the end of the runway. The runway is long gone, honey. Like, I can tell you right now, we have like, people talk about their financial runway, and I was like, I don't know what that is. I don't think I've ever had a runway in the last year. So I think we're running on air. It's a different feeling to know that we're not here for that reason. Granted, we're a business. We want to make money. We see that what we're building will make money, but it's not the motivation right now. We're driven on something else, and it feels different. You come into the meetings and it feels different. We're all driven by something that is beyond financial, and it's stronger. And that's what I found being bootstrapped.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing such an honest answer with us, Kyiana. I know, Mary and I, we're also working at Binge Builder X here, and it is something that we do on our own time, that we care about the mission at BBX. And so we want to be here. And so that really resonates with me personally. So I really appreciate you sharing a little bit about the incredible team that you have at Intertwine. Sounds like, it is, a team that is very mission driven and really scrappy and getting it done. So thank you for that honest answer. And you talked a little bit about this, but you said we don't have this money readily available, and so that makes me think about, who is this money readily available for? And so it is, you see the same people that are pitching, that are investing to the same VCs, and so I want to hear about your experience as a Black female founder, what it has been like to fundraise or attempt to fundraise for Twine. I'd be curious to learn a bit about that.
Yeah, no, I was like, oh, is she going to get into it? We're going to get into like the type of people who fundraise and pitch. Are we going to do it? No. Okay. Okay. I was like, we're going to get into juice
we
like
can
that?
Into it. We can get into it.
How raunchy we're going on this? Honestly, when I first started fundraising, I actually didn't know anything about fundraising. For the first year of running my company, I didn't know anything about fundraising or what these angels were. I literally was looking for people who had wings. Yeah, I was like, what is happening? What are these words, these concepts of people just giving out money? I don't believe it. So it took a whole year, and it wasn't until I was in my first it wasn't until I was in my third accelerator that they started like molding me into getting something called my pitch deck ready. And I was like, what the heck is this thing? I've never, it was a great exercise of figuring out what your financial business model was. And my CFO was like, what the hell? Why do you need that? You don't make money. Why would they ask for this? And so it really gave us question of like, what do you want to do with your future? Really lay it down for me, make it clear, make it concise, make it a one-liner. And all of these things that are really great for pitching your business, even to customers. So, as I'm doing it, I'm like, oh, this is really good for a customer. Oh, this is really good when I explain it to a partner. Oh, this is really good for when I go to a sponsor. Like, I need to know how to say this like rapid fire. And then, because I was in an accelerator, they had us like reach out to investors and like, what was it like to do cold investing? Like, after the program, we're expecting you to go fundraise. And I'm like, okay, cool. There's going to be balloons and confetti, right? Like fundraise. And no one was there. I was like very, very new to the concept of fundraising. And I thought it was going to be a circus. I thought it was going to be fabulous and easy, because the way they had talked about it was like, when you fundraise, things happen and people give you money. And then the more
angels come down and give you money.
like wings come out of people's backs and we give out money to strangers. And like, I blown. And you know, the more I started doing it, I was really confused as to why it wasn't as easy as everybody had described it, or how fast it was supposed to be when people described it, or I was doing everything right and I didn't understand why it wasn't working. Like I was talking to investors every day. I was making emails, pitching, doing all these sort of things. And, you know, my deck was awful. It was bad. But I was completely unaware as to what's happening. And after 3 months of my official fundraise, which is something that you create on your own, you're like, this is the day I start, this is the day I give up. Like you officiate that and have that written on a piece of paper. That's your fundraising round, right? Like it's not a period of time like a I'm coming out sort of party, or like we all do it together. It's whatever date you want it to start and it's whatever date you want it to end. Again, these concepts were really hard for me to fathom because it sounded so formal. The more I started fundraising, the more I realized, okay, this is a lot harder than everybody made it seem. I'm talking to other founders now and they're like, oh, no, this is torture. This is absolute destruction on my psyche. It's destruction on my self-worth. It makes me feel terrible because I keep getting rejected. I'm putting my all into this pitch. I'm smiling in people's faces and knowing that they're trying to like destroy me with their words and their questions. It's a different level of self-worth. Like when you come out of fundraising, founders have often described it, especially if you're going the long haul, if it takes me a whole 3 months or 4 months, heaven forbid, 6 months to talk to a bunch of people. It's when people have fundraised for 6 months long, it means that during that 6 months, in addition to running their business, because it's always the CEO, they're talking to people, talking to investors for 6 months and getting rejected multiple times. It brings down the morale of how you feel about yourself, how you feel about your company, to a new level of, if I'm going to have someone talk crap about my company this whole time, I have to really love it. I have to really like it. And I can't see me fundraising for 6 months straight, because it would really be a terrible turn on how I see myself and my company. And I can't imagine fundraising for 6 months and being told I am not going to get the funds that I need because everything is wrong, or this is wrong, or that's wrong. But that's what it's like for 6 months fundraising. There are people who get funding within a week. Good for them. Good for them. Whatever it is that you're doing, keep doing it so someone gives you money. You don't have to go through that feeling. But most founders go through that feeling because for various reasons. But yeah, I will never congratulate anybody who I will love on the person who goes through a 6 month fundraise, because it's not all rainbows and sunshine. It's quite the contrary. It's a rough, very aggressive, abrasive experience. And if you've done it for 6 months, that means either you've given up or you've been successful. And if you've been successful at raising after 6 months, bless your heart. After 3 months of doing it personally, I actually had given up. Like I was like, 3 months, we're done. I haven't been successful at raising. I now know what this feels like. And it wasn't until the very last day when I gave up, I found my first institutional investor. And I straight up told them, this is hell. I hate this so much with a passion. And I don't ever want to do this again. I was so candid that they were like, okay, I want to invest in you. I was like, please don't mess with me. You're not being funny.
Right. Like, stop playing right now.
Stop playing. I'm exhausted. I have rings under my eyes. Like, we're not playing games today. And no, they were honest and truthful about it. And that was the first time I got investment. And I was like, man, you're not going to regret this. You're not going to regret this. And then every time after that, I'll tell people I'm fundraising, but I'm really not. Like, I'm trying to be like attractive and be like, oh yeah, I'll take your money, but like, you know, no, thank you. You have to, it's sort of a psychological game now. So whenever I'm out and about with investors, and I hope it doesn't like mess up my clout when I go to my gatherings and my mixings now, because someone's going to hear that I'm doing this on purpose, but I will personally go out to these events because I'm marketing myself. You will see me as a Black woman. You will see me repping my company. I will say my company. I will have my pitch down. I am professional. I'm pristine. I'm crisp. And then I will straight up tell you I'm not fundraising. Just so that you know that I am desirable, because now I'm playing the reverse psychology on you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You can't have me because I'm not fundraising. But in the back of my head, I'll be like, if you give me some money, I'd consider it. Like, if you're handing out money, like, of course I will take your money if I like you. So I know it's a different world when you fundraise. And I know I joke and say I take people's money, but I am very picky about who I would take money from, just like I am picky about who I partner with.
Yeah, and that's actually a great transition into our last question here around fundraising. But you mentioned, on the last day, you're getting ready to, losing that like faith, I guess, in fundraising and investing, and then this investor comes in and they're to give you some funds there. But how did you go about, I guess, finding a type of investor that really aligned with the vision and the mission that you had for Intertwine?
Yeah, so it's been a real learning curve. So like I said, when I first started fundraising, I was very green and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know that I'm supposed to really be scrutinizing my investor as much as they're scrutinizing me. It's a very important factor that I take very seriously at this very moment, after 3 years of being in this business, and especially in the last year of being out in the world and meeting more investors. Just naturally, I've become more not concerned, but more aware of who I want to have in my investment stuff. And it was, luckily for me, the only institutional investor I've had thus far was a good company, was a good investment for us, because they saw that I snapped at them and I was like, I hate this with a passion. And they saw that I was worthy of being invested in. And ever since then, we've had such an open, honest conversation about what it's like to be an investor to me, and like what it means to me when I need help, or I can be transparent and not be afraid that you're going to retaliate about any problems that I'm experiencing. And because I've had such a good relationship with that investor, it's shown me what I'm expecting from the next few people. Like, you will not come at me with your drama and your panic attacks that you're trying to induce. I will not have it, because I know that the other investors I have now don't do that. They don't pressure me. They don't set panic around me. They don't, I'm not afraid to come to them with the problems that I'm experiencing. And I will outright tell them, I don't want to do this. I don't want to make money. I'm not ready to make money yet. I don't know what we're doing just yet. You have to be able to be that transparent with someone who is basically your life partner, as long as you have this business, especially if you have them take equity in your company, because they're not going anywhere. Just like the people who have employment stock, just like your CTO, your C-suite people, if they own equity, they will be married to you even if you get a divorce. They own half the house now. So if I can't talk to you about those problems, then I will hate this. And so it's really given me pause about, okay, how do I vibe with this person? How do I vibe with this investor? What are your values? Oh, you help women. How many people have you invested in? How many women have you invested in? How many people of color have you invested in? How many people of color are on your staff? I don't see many of those things. Okay, well, I'm going to be on my way. What does your portfolio look like? Are you mostly investing in fintech? It's not my thing. I don't want investments in fintech. I want you to understand that if I'm building this SaaS product, it's here to build something for the masses that is helpful. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about me converting to a B corporation where I'm more focused on the common good than I am about money? Does that bother you? Like, if it does, then you're not the right institutional investor for me. Like, if it's not that I want to have complete control over my company, artists need people who be like, no, that paintbrush costs money. You need someone to be focused on money. You need those people around, but I don't need an investor around who's going to be solely focused on profit and sabotage the company just because it didn't make profit the way they thought it should, or that if we're pivoting and I'm choosing the helpful person route rather than choosing the SaaS making money route, you can't come at me and be upset about that, because I'm going to be very transparent at the front of it, like, if you invest in me, my goal will always be to be people first. I'm going to be here for all the shareholders who I'm affecting and not just the stakeholders. And so having those transparent conversations and learning that an investor will back you up even when you do that stuff has been enlightening. Like, again, my institutional investor, his name is Will. Will is one of them, but of the team. Like, I had sat down and had a conversation with him, and it blew my mind just how for me he was. Like, like the company can change, right? Like at this stage, investors are investing in you as an individual. And so when I sat down with him and I was like, hey, Will, I don't know what I'm doing. I want to help more people, but what we've built as a SaaS product is way more powerful and dynamic than I ever thought it could be. And I know for a fact, if we focused all of our energy on that, we would be a company worth acquiring. We'd be a company worth millions. And he sat down with me and he's like, well, Kyiana, that's not really what you've pitched to me. Is that something you really care about? And I was like, what? He's like, well, I mean, I'm going to be supportive of you of whatever you do. Like, but I'll be honest, you've always come to me at the artist angle. Like, are you willing to give up being helpful to artists? And I looked at him, I was like, what are you talking about? Aren't you supposed to be an investor? Don't you care that I make money? I haven't made any money yet. And he's like, and I was like, don't me. Like, I need you to care. And that's what I sat back and I was like, you know what? I'm going to make this man some money. Don't worry about that. I'm going to come through and I'm going to make this man some money because he believes in the original dream. He believes in the common good that I want to do. And because of that belief in me and what I'm trying to build, I will do my best to be successful financially if that's what it takes for him to be happy and what it takes for us to be happy. But, it was different. It was different when you have an investor like that. And I've met a lot of founders who feel an immense amount of panic because they've taken money and they either don't know how to make money just yet, or the investors breathing down their neck, watching them, or, putting a clock on them and making them feel like, you took money, now I want my return on investment. I don't feel that. And I feel very grateful about that. And it makes me wonder, it makes me pause now when I go to fundraise, like, are you ready for that? And there are many founders who have put on me, like, make sure you're ready to take in that funds and make sure you're ready to take in that panic and that clock. If you're going to take in money, those all come together. So when you make that decision, make sure you're ready for it, and don't just take it because you feel like you need it or because it's a reward or it's free money or whatever it looks like on the surface. If you can, make money first. Try to be successful on your own. And if you need money to scale and it's only institutional money like that, then consider it, but please consider something else first. And I'm so happy to have a woman of color say that to me. Multiple women of color say that to me. We could get into the conversation of what it's like for women of color to get funding. I can't quite articulate what it's like because I've not gotten funding, and I don't know how many other women of color have been unsuccessful at getting funding. But the idea that we won't be getting funding is something I've learned to accept and learn how to bootstrap a little bit better, ask people to work for free a little bit better, like move toward revenue a lot faster, because I'm under the impression that my first institutional investor is a real miracle, and I don't know if that'll ever come back again.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you just found an alignment in terms of what your core values and missions are as an individual, but also for Intertwine, and that's really important to you in looking for investors. So it just sounds like there's a lot of intentionality with people who you do take money from, which is great, because to your point, I think a lot of founders are really on this panic mode, or just want to take any type of money they can get, but don't realize how much pressure and just
it's the glamour of it. It's sometimes it's hard to like get over the glamour. You see it in like Crunchbase or the tech newsletter, and you're like, oh man, I'm feeling the FOMO. I'm feeling inadequate because this person just took lots of money, hundreds of millions or millions of blah, blah, blah. And you're like, man, I have nothing. I have no one. I have nothing.
Right. But I think, you've gotten to that point where you know what you're looking for, you know what type of investor would align best with you as a founder, but also intertwine as, as a very people-oriented business. So I think that's amazing, Kyiana, like that you're just holding your ground and you're like, this is what I am and this is what I'm coming with. And investor, do you like this or not? I mean, I don't want to do you a disservice, but I think that's amazing. There's a lot about like your character as a founder and yet alone as a woman of color founder. So that's really amazing.
Keep going.
And I guess just to wrap up, we just have 2 rapid fire questions for you, Kyiana. So first question is, so where can we find you next? And please tell us about any upcoming creative projects that you have and that you're excited about.
Yeah, so like I had mentioned earlier, we're having a 48-hour horror film festival for women of color. So it's films that were made, I know, it's films that were made in 48 hours by women of color, 50% in front of the line or behind the line. I know you're like, okay, well, I'm going to have women of color just be all up in the front of the camera. I'll be like, no. Someone needed to write it, direct it. Someone needed to be a producer who's a woman of color. And we're debuting all of their films October 27th at 5 p.m. at the Ebel of Los Angeles. And they're an official partner. I love flaunting that. We get to be in this big, beautiful space, this classical space that is known for supporting women's education and women's art. And so we get to be in that space and debut these women's films, meet the judges, and then we're going to have an after party where we have organizations who support women and women's rights at the after party. And so I'm more than ecstatic to have that event go on. We're selling tickets for that if you're interested in coming. We are selling tickets at the current moment. You can go to intertwine.us to grab some of those tickets. And then after that, we're just going to continue to have really great programming and make partnerships with a lot of people. So next up is a writing program that we're going to have registration for open in the end of November. And the idea is you'd be able to do a writer's workshop for a whole month of January. And then we do sort of like a Black History Month activity where we do readings of the materials that were made during that month. In February, have some slam poetry, have some improv involved, just have a really great event or even a series in February. So that is the next few things that are coming up. If you're following us on any of our socials or online in our newsletter, we have a newsletter that goes out every month about all the activities and programs that are available in the industry. So you can sign up at intertwine.us, but we have multiple things going on every year, and it's our goal to do a lot of programming and make opportunities available to people when they normally wouldn't have them.
It's amazing, and it sounds very wholesome, Kyiana.
It sounds wholesome.
So it just sounds great. I mean, shoot, let me get myself a ticket.
I mean, like, yes. horror films sound wholesome. Yes.
Yes. Everything about it.
It's a genre that women don't normally partake in, like, right? Like, or write about or film themselves. And, like, women can't be scary. And that's not true. So let's show them that women can be scary. Let's show them that people of color can have, like, scenes where they are scared and they're not the first people to die in the movie, right? Like, we're going to make things where we see ourselves in them. And that's a huge part of the movement that Intertwine is doing. It's like, well, the seat at the table reference. Like, if they're not going to make a seat at the table, well, we'll make our own seat and then push everybody out of the way. Like,
right.
Let's show what we look like when we make films that are scary. Let's show what we look like when we make films that are awkward. Let's show what we look like when we think we're being normal. And so that's what our movement is all about.
Yes, I love that, Kyiana. It's freaking awesome. Let's disrupt the entertainment industry. Let's bring them down and and
please do it, Kyiana.
Because this is what we need. For young creators, people of color, like we need to see ourselves on the screen. We need to
Mm.
see ourselves represented. I have a young cousin there. They're 15. They love horror. They want to make
Ooh.
horror films. And like just hearing you talk about this, I'm like, oh my God, they would love this. They would absolutely love this. So I am so thankful that you're sharing information about Horror Fest. We'll make sure to include links below so people can check them out and buy a ticket and support Intertwine, support you, Kyiana. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here, talking about your experience, about Intertwine, and about the vision that you have for your company. It really means a lot to us that you took that extra time to really spend it with us and allow us the opportunity to hear from you and your experience. So thank you very much, and we're so excited to follow up and learn more about Horror Fest.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.